You have to start with the off season. We push spring back purposefully, so we get about an 8.5 week training cycle with our players, and that's been outstanding for us. I think there's a lot of talk about culture and things like that. I think that's where our team is built is in the off season. So, we purposefully move spring practice back. It gives us a lot of time to get these guys in, get them acclimated, and really we pride ourselves on being a program of development. And we've got a lot of young players that need to develop and have done a really good job in the off season. So having a strength cycle like that is good. Essentially, it gives us 2 summers to get going. And for us right here, we got practice 5 today. Spring has been really good. Every week kind of go through a process, heavy install Tuesday, a little bit lighter on Thursday, and then Saturday we kind of review and clean it all up. So kind of emulates a little bit of a game week, particularly when you have as many position battles like you do every spring. It allows guys, you see who can retain the information immediately, who can kind of start getting better as the week goes on, and by Saturday, who's ready to go out there and go play at a high level. So it's been a really good off season. Spring's off to a great start. The competition and the effort and the enthusiasm to be out there is what we're really most excited about. We got a lot of time to clean up the things we need to. Certainly, there's a lot of work to do to get to be the team we want to be, but I told our staff today, we'll have a good football team this year because of the way these guys work, and really because of our coaching staff that sets the pace for them. So, it's a work in progress for sure, but I think we're in a good spot here to start.
Well, Coach, some of the guys who showed some potential last year as backups, and maybe have you seen? Is it too early to see some jumps or the progress that's made, or is it not too early to see?
No, I mean, I think you see where. I think it's too early to say if they've made that, but it's not too early to see the guys that have kind of flashed and shown up, and I think when you go into it rightly, we talk about the holes that we had to fill a little bit, at tight end. I think the tight end group's done a phenomenal job, led by Caden Jensen. He's playing the way we want to. And then, Trey Miller, is a guy we've added in the offseason, as well as Brock Chappelle. Those guys have been phenomenal. They fit. They're really good. They're diligent. They work really hard. Coach Munoz and Joe Lombardi, who's our GA on offense, have done a phenomenal job of getting them caught up. And those guys are performing at a high level. Teddy Golick is a guy who redshirted last year. He was here last spring, so he's got a full year in. He's performed well to this point. And then we moved Emiliano Soldavia from linebacker over to tight end. He's got a little bit of an offensive background. That's been a good move. He does some good stuff for us. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, I think John Bragg and Jamarian Gooch have been very good so far this spring. Those are guys that we had high hopes for, expected them to play really well. They've done a really good job. Matt Broussard and Zay Alexander, those guys are coming along too, like you would hope and like we needed them to. But those two jump out. At wide receiver, Shelton Sampson's been phenomenal. Everything that we were kind of hoping he'd be coming into it. It's elevated. Kadarius Wade has elevated his game. He's had a really productive spring so far. Having Charles Robertson back in the mix after having to miss last year has been really good for us. Jaden Johnson has been, through 4 practices, extremely consistent, which is what we needed him to be. He flashed for us always. Rajee Dennis has made really big strides on the offensive side of the ball. And then Rob Williams is another one that we've asked just for the consistency. Throughout his career, Rob has flashed over and over again, but he's had a good spring. You go over to defense, with Jaden Duggar, we, at the end of last year, was like, look, we got to find a way to get the guy on the field a little bit more than really what we did last year. He's a unique player. So he's playing more off the ball at inside linebacker, but we still have packages and things that will allow him to be on the edge. And that's been a good move for us. That linebacker group as a whole, I think the competition is what you want it to be. Terrence Williams and Caleb Edwards and Jake St. Andre and Jaden Duggar. And then you add those young guys in the mix too that are going to be good players. It's been really good there. At corner, I think we're being really aggressive right now, and we're playing. We're forcing the issue. We're playing a little bit more aggressively than we were able to do last year, and we've got guys that are doing it. Lorenzel Dubose is just competing day after day, getting better. Avery Demery, is going to be a really good player for us. Trey Tomlinson's been a good get. So you go kind of on and on. Jeremiah Moses is kind of finally looks like taking the steps that we knew he could and wanted him to. So, there's a lot of good things right now that we're excited about. And I think, the first thing you always kind of hope for is the guys that you've added to your team. Let's just say what it is. You hope that they are what you thought they were. I think there's probably as many misses in the portal as there are, ones that hit. So for us, we're pleased with the portal additions that we've had, and I'm sure this is going to come up, including Walker, including Curly Reed, the two young guys that are here. Darrell Smith at running back has been really good, and Jacoby Isom is going to be a good player too. So, those guys that we added mid-year, we feel like we hit on. And, last year we felt like we won in the portal and came out ahead, and, this year remains to be seen, but I think it's possible.
What have you seen from the quarterback position battle so far?
They're battling, we got a good group there, so, said it last year, and, I think people think I'm full of it, but, last year I felt like we had two starting quarterbacks. This year we got three guys in the mix that, I could tell you period to period, they're competing their tails off. And, Lunch brings a kind of a different dimension a little bit with what he does. And he does some really good things day to day. I think Daniel's been the most consistent, which is to be expected at this point. But Walker is one of those guys that naturally you'd expect those heavy install days to be a lot first semester in the system. As the week goes, he continues to play better, which is what you need from your quarterback. So excited about that competition. And, and I told them this, and I'll say this, we're not in a rush to make a decision over what, I think I think it's foolish to say we're going to make a decision by this date just to do it. I love the way they're competing. It makes our team better. And they're competing their tails off, and the competition's really good. Walker has been an outstanding fit for the quarterback room. It's like he's been there the whole time, the way he walks in there and just fits in. So it's been a really healthy, fun, good competition. And I can tell you, it's a lot of fun to go into a room like that when you get to work with kids like we have in there, and they are competing every day, and it's been fun.
How different has it been with guys that either are in their second or first year in the system as opposed to when you had been in Chandler, who'd been doing it forever last year?
It's very different. Truthfully, you always say, well, we're going to, the challenge sometimes when you have been in Chandler is to teach to the new guys without, I guess, I don't want to say boring them, because that's not how they were. They were very diligent in what they did, but while continuing to grow their football knowledge, you're trying, with Ben and Chandler, you're trying to get to step 4, 5, and 6, and then you're trying to hit step 1 and 2. This kind of puts everybody a little bit more on the same level. Obviously a couple, some of those guys have been here for a year, Lunch for 2, but still felt like we needed to go from the ground up. So another reason for the extended strength and conditioning cycle that we had was, we got to start working into football more. You get a couple hours a week in the off season. Well, we got, more of those 2 hours, over a longer period of time to be able to meet, do football 101, talk about all that stuff. So it's different, but it's good. That's the fun part about it. You gotta talk about everything in detail, and you got to reteach it from the bottom up. And they retain really well, so you can get to the next steps fast, but you have to start at ground zero every time. Where there was times with Ben and Chandler, as long as they'd been here, it was kind of, hey, you remember this, that, the other, and kind of roll from there.
Coach, when you mentioned about bringing in new players and position battles and things of that nature, you talked about Jaden Duggar kind of moving to inside linebacker. Like, who have you seen, including him, that's kind of assumed the role or tried to step up to help to replace what Casey Osai brought to the table at that position?
Well, I think I told the team this yesterday. I don't want anyone to compare themselves to anyone else, and I told them, I said, the only person they should compare themselves to is yesterday's version of themselves. And I I don't think that you get, KC was so unique in a lot of things he did for us. We're not asking one person to shoulder that load. Really what I want the leadership that he brought and those things to spread out amongst different people in the defense. Certainly we need to get a high level of play there. But I'm really pleased with Duggar playing in there. He's done a really good job. With Terrence Williams, he's taken a big step forward in his second year, really being at linebacker. Caleb Edwards, who we ended up redshirting last year, so he would be in position to, compete for this job and have 2 years. And, and Jake St. Andre, I'd say those four, just right off the top are the four that are doing a really good job. I'm really excited about the young backers that we have. I don't know if it's maybe their turn yet, but it will be pretty shortly. You expect, obviously the play's got to step up there. And I think we have guys that are more than capable of that, of playing at that level. I think the leadership part you spread out, Jordan Lawson and Kadarius Miller, who Kadarius decided to come back and take that extra year. Those guys are leaders, right? On the back end, even though Skip is out this spring, he's coaching and he's out there every day. I expect him to take a leadership role, and then, Cody Jackson's a guy that's played enough and played well enough. He needs to kind of grow in that role. Cam Whitfield, who's kind of a quiet guy, that's what we're kind of pushing him to take some of that leadership role. So I think you have to spread that part of it out. Athletically, I think we've got guys that are plenty talented enough at linebacker to be able to go out there and do the job. But I say it all the time, you can replace the position. Replacing the person's hard. And with as much as KC brought to the table, I think you have to spread some of that out. You can't expect one person to come in here and do that job exactly like he did it. That's a tough thing to do.
And I guess to follow up off of that, you mentioned about, guys kind of coming more into being more of a vocal leader. Like, what things can you do as a coaching staff to help, garner those talented guys and help them become more vocal leaders in the way that they grow in their careers?
I told our staff this today. I think our staff sets the tone for the environment that we want to create here. And I think you do that. I think you empower people. You put them in positions to be able to do that. You encourage them to do that. We have a leadership group that, I meet with, throughout the season periodically. And, part of that leadership group is the guys that are already on it. They kind of help me pick the next group that's coming on. And, not that you have to be on the leadership group to be a leader. Certainly, I think we want way more than that. But I think you have to empower people to do that. You have to show them that you care about them, that you believe in them, and that they've earned the right to be a leader on this team. And, I think that's what you try to facilitate with them. Those guys, the leadership group, they have to do culture talks in front of the team. They have to get up in front of the team and they have to talk about different topics and say what it means to them. Our coaches help them through that part of it. But I think it starts with you have to empower them to feel like they're comfortable enough in front of the whole team, in front of the coaching staff to, if they don't like the way something's going, to say it, or if they feel really good about the way it's going, to say it. So, we're trying to, I think you develop that. And some people have natural leadership tendencies. It almost feels like they're born with it, right? And then some people, I think leadership is a funny thing. The ones that are born to do it, that's like the easy part. You just kind of empower them and they take off and run with it. And there are some of them that you need to develop into leaders because the way that people around them see them, they respect what they do. They respect the way they operate. They respect the way they handle their business. They respect the way they play. They respect the person that they are. You have to help them see what other people see them as. And, that's the fun part about it, though, because, that's something I think that carries over for a long time. And I think leadership can be developed. I think leadership has to be developed. And, it's fun every year to see who kind of, T. Lou's a guy last year that stepped into that leadership role that previous to that, what really was not in that equation or that picture at all. I think he felt empowered and he felt, confidence that the coaching staff had in him, that the other players had in him, and he became a really good leader on that defense where there was more than just KC in there. So every year it's kind of fun to see who that ends up being. But certainly we have guys that are really capable of that.
Are y'all toying in spring now with maybe position changes on the offensive line?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think right now is the time, Jax is playing guard, playing a little bit of center. George Jackson's playing tackle and guard. Caden Morrow's jumping over right side, left side, at guard. I think, the thing that we have is we got to figure out, you have some flexibility in there. You got to figure out what's the best five, and a guy like George Jackson who's played really well, maybe his best position for us might be guard, but we got to get a tackle that plays good enough to be able to do that. And if not, we know he can play tackle. He's done it for us. So it's fun to have that flexibility. This is the time to do it. I've kind of talked about those young guys, in particular, John Bragg and Jamarian Gooch are two that they're pretty darn good. They're really talented, and they're guys that are playing really well right now and really consistently. Well, great. Okay, well, how can we put all these pieces together? How we typically, we try to play, 8 really is what we try to play in a game. And I think that's a healthy, good thing for us. And it's been really beneficial when we've lost some guys that all these cats have been playing the whole time, So, I feel really confident we'll be able to get, a really solid, a really good 2 deep in that offensive line room. So, yeah, we move a bunch of pieces around to figure out, if we got to go out tomorrow and kick it off, what's the best 5 and where?
No, go ahead.
Is it too early, or is not the spring at the time you really do a lot to figure out, like, you lost a pretty good kicker, like someone's got to kick?
Yeah, believe me, I've been thinking about that since about the middle of last year. We've got, Logan Klotz and Sterner, that are here that are competing for it. And, you try to put them in position where they got to go make kicks in front of their team. They got to go do that. I think both of those guys are talented, playing talented enough to kick here. Replacing what Kenny did for us, where it was so automatic is the hard part, and he had to grow into that a little bit. That wasn't always the case, So, I think we have 2 talented guys. We have a freshman that's going to be coming in too. That's really talented that we're excited about having. We'll take that battle all the way up to the opening kickoff if that's what we got to do. But you got to try to put them in some pressure situations, and you got to try to make them. You got to make them kick in front of their teammates, and they got to make them, and we're charting everything and making them compete for it.
Health-wise, you mentioned Skipper's out for the spring. Have y'all started off good as far as everybody staying out there?
Yeah, pretty much. Skip's out for the spring, which we knew that. Quentin Williams is probably going to be out for the spring, which is a little disappointing. We were hoping, that he was going to be able to participate in spring a little bit more than he is, coming off an off-season surgery. You have a couple nicks and bruises here and there. Jax had a little bit of a back flare up that he missed a day. He's going to start working back into it today. Bryant Williams kind of sprained his ankle a little bit. Not bad. He'll miss a couple days. But Micaiah Bivens had not a non-injury, kind of an illness-related thing. But for the most part, yeah, we're in pretty good shape as far as that goes. It's only day 5, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to kind of get some of those guys back and push through it because we're having. It's a really good thing we got going right now. We've got 3 groups that are competing really well. We got guys that are battling for spots, so it's really been a lot of fun so far. So yeah, hopefully we can kind of stay healthy here through spring where we can. These 15 days are important, and to us, spring football is a critical part of our year-round plan, and we take our time getting through these 15 days, but it certainly matters, and there's a quote I found that I'm shared with guys today. If you don't always feel like you have something to prove, then you're never going to improve. So I don't care. Hey, it's George Jackson who's started a bunch of games here and played really good. He needs to feel like he's got to prove that he deserves to be there. And the same with, the backup, the second string safety that's trying to fight his tail off to be on special teams and make the trip. He's got to feel like he's got something to prove every day. So it's important that we keep him healthy. Our training staff does a great job. And to be honest with you, our kids work really hard to get back on the field. So fortunately, that's been good so far.
And you've seen a lot of teams, coaches talk about changing the spring in recent years. How confident or, was it a discussion for y'all? Did y'all feel pretty good about the setup and just making any tweaks to it?
No, look, people tamper with our kids all year. So I don't think a spring game is going to affect that one way or the other. And the greater good is more important for us, you know. Some people, everyone does it different. We're not in the business. We don't make these cuts at the end of spring. We don't live in that world. We get our team where we want them, and we try to keep them all here, and we're going to do that. I don't think a spring game is going to affect the tampering that already goes on, and if it does, then it is what it is. I mean, the guys that want to be here, we're going to play with and we'll win with, and this spring is really important to us. The spring game's important. I think it's an important thing, man. You split teams, you get them on the sidelines, they go out there and they got to go play. I'm hoping if we can stay healthy, I want to play it, like a whole game. I want to play, 2 halves, and I want to go and I want to let them play. So it's, to me, in my opinion, it's too important to us, and everyone's got their own thing. And I'm not. That's everyone's right to run their team. I'm worried about one team. That's it. To us, it's really important. So there was never really a question.
Defensive line, we've heard for a while about potential guys like Chase and Lance. What are you seeing from them?
I'm fired up about that group. I think one that I kind of didn't mention, Jalen Kreider's been a really good get for us too. He came in here and has done a really good job so far. So, yeah, the Jordan Lawsons of the world, yeah, we expect him to play really well. Kadarius Miller, you expect him to play well. He played really well last year for us. So those are like the non-surprises, right? Chase Edwards is a guy who at the end of the year started really flashing. Challenge him to be more consistent. I think Fitzgerald West is a guy that, in my opinion, could be a really good player in this league. He's had a great spring so far. Lance is a guy that's tremendously talented. We were able to redshirt him last year, which I think was the best thing for him. He's put on 15, 16, 17 pounds since last year, and that shows up, the way he's playing on the edge. So, yeah, that group's been a lot of fun. They play really hard. Maxie Baudouin is a guy that local kid that, he's flashing right now. So we feel like the depth there is going to be really good. They're playing really hard. And you got some pieces there that I think can be really, really good players in this league. And, I say it all the time, we can get really good high school players. We just have to develop them. And that's the fun part about it. College football is supposed to be new kids that you never heard of every year that step in and go play. Like, that's the way it was for years, right? You graduate really good ones, and you got these guys in the pipeline that you got coming up that you've been really grooming and developing over time, and you see the growth in them. That's, to me, part of what's so fun about spring. The end of the year, when you're getting ready for bowl practice, it kind of like starts the next year a little bit. And you get to work with those guys, and then now you get them back in spring where, like, they know they're really competing for something. They have something to prove, and you see a whole new side of them start to come out. And I've been really pleased with that defensive line group, and a lot of those guys, they're panning out like you want them to. So, certainly wouldn't sit here and say that, I'm ready to say that, we're going to shut everybody out. But, we got a group of kids that are working really hard, and I think they're going to play good football for us.